your host, LP, and today we are talking to actor, writer, director, someone you've definitely seen perform and thought, oh, she's funny. I'm so excited to welcome my friend Emily Maya Mills. How are you, pal?
I'm so good. How are you, pal?
I'm so good. So great to see you. We've known each other a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, we're
Very long.
very, very young people, but back when we were even younger, we were friends over at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater.
When we were kindergartners at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, just little
Didn't
baby.
it feel like a bunch of kindergartners running around over
Oh,
there?
sure. I honestly, you were the manager first. I was like managing a different theater and came on early as an intern and just kind of helped out, and then slowly, not that slowly. Most places I've worked, I was a manager three.
That's your competence speaking for you right there.
But I remember that specifically that it was like in the beginning, we might have maybe smoked a little weed and like finished that 40 that somebody left in the
We
group.
might have.
And then it sort of became apparent like, oh, they're paying us to not do that.
We were responsible though, not to, I don't want to throw us, get us fired.
No,
That was the most fun place.
it
So
really
many cool people performing at that time and still now.
totally. I always think about it like, I think in the later days of UCB, I was like, just or this was good and this was bad, but there was so much good to the creation of that space and that like working class theater where you go to shows for $5 and eight.
Is it still $5?
It was eventually eight, but I don't know where it's at now, maybe 10.
$5 to $10 for a great show. Can't
Incredible.
beat it. I feel like I haven't been there in a long time, which I regret, but I need to see what's happening.
It's cool. It's different. It's different owners, which is wild.
Yeah, it's evolved. What a heyday. It was when it just had opened, right? We were there. I remember getting to LA and it had just opened. And I was like, that's sort of UCB is like sort of the impetus of all my comedy connections. Like I started doing it in New York, and then when I moved here, it was just opening and I was like, let me reach out. And I remember like painting the stage. It was like just getting together.
Yes. Painting that stage was fun. I actually am proud to say that the mosaic tile laid in
I remember this.
it might have been renovated since then, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just breaking pieces of tile and fitting it around the base of the toilet because it was like a violation to not have it grouted.
It was a violation, okay? It wasn't just artistic. It looked very artistic when you did it.
I didn't know how else to.
When you were there, did you already know you wanted to be writing and performing, or were you just like working in theater?
I was actually at the first Sunday ASCAT as a like improv fan person. So
Just a fan or someone who wanted to do it?
I was at the Groundlings. I was there's extended wait lists between levels at the Groundlings. So I had started doing improv and sketch at a little what I would consider a hole in above Masha Malone's ice cream shop. A lot of people know of this specific stage. It was called the Home of the Barubians, and it was sort of like where you went when you didn't know where everybody was. So like I have a few friends
Okay.
like, oh, we spent some time because it was I don't know how else to describe it other than I think it was like a kind of morally questionable script doctor who wanted to have a little scene of his own and had some money and opened this theater. It was definitely like a jammy place, but it would also like have AA meetings and then somebody was living in the wall and um
What? Should we let you pass by? Someone was living in the wall?
doing odd jobs for room and board. It was a central Hollywood kind of yeah, quite it was I don't know. In the
A TV show in there somewhere.
it was definitely. I think that guy sort of got in trouble in the end. I was appreciative of the space. There was a lot of, I think, attention and opportunity given to women who wear the tighter tops. And that's not an issue by I'm not complaining about their tighter tops. It's
No.
you're like
So there's
here. Something is going on here. And then later it turned out it was maybe
something odd. Okay.
desperately needed UCB.
Right. Okay. So you were at that first ASCAT and you were like, this is cool. This is crazy. What are these people doing?
Yeah. I was like, this is legit. We were so excited. I was doing improv with a group called the Tiny Bandoleros.
Always love an improv troupe name.
Yes. And was we'd sort of found a residence at Acme on Friday nights as like an outside team. And we got
Okay.
people out and we were doing it, but I would say in retrospect at that time, nobody knew what was we were doing. There was, there was no real form. There was no knowledge of like game or pattern. It was just sort of there. Yeah, theater, kind of theater dorking around. And
Okay. But that's sort of the fun of improv, right? It's like wild and whatever.
totally,
Did you
totally.
do it before? Like, did you come from like theater in high school or college or
Yeah, I definitely theater in high school, went to college for acting, went to Emerson for a BFA in acting, and I actually did a double minor in comm poly law, which was just like a different department. It's
poly law?
communications, politics. So I was taking all my classes and then all my extracurriculars were in radio. So I went to Emerson, but I didn't like lock up the mafia kind of like I was a little spread around. Oh, I also worked full time at a restaurant. So
Wow.
I went to school for acting. I didn't do a lot of plays at that time. I think I was like I'm really grateful for that education, but I was very skeptical still of like, I don't know about this academic approach to acting. And again, like I loved in retrospect the base layer that I got just stepping through it anyway. But I don't think it was really until after that. And Emerson was a great environment. It was just that after I started kind of getting deeper into, yeah, scene study, discovery play was all like in LA.
When did you move to LA?
A couple years after college, so I had moved to New York for a summer and met up with a buddy from college and we and just got jobs and just well, I'll say when I moved to LA, the reason I moved to New York first is because we're like, we need to figure out how to get an apartment together for moving to LA. We try to find something on the internet, but it was like in a time where like if you got pictures, they were like and it was
Line by line?
in my line and you could see like a corner of a picture that was downloading for an hour and eventually would just shut down your computer. So it was those days. And yeah, and then I started really in LA playing more, did the growlings, hooked up with these kids over at the hole in the wall and did as much as I could while I was on wait lists and was like, yeah, having a lot of fun doing characters and sketch and just really jamming it out. I think when I got to UCB, I was like, this is amazing to kind of have a little bit more of a formal training environment. And then a lot of people had already been at IO, and you're like, wow, look at them go. You know, had some like baseline of what the rules were. And also a lot of people had been jamming over at the Ramada Inn. There was a big show called the OK Ho Hum Spectacular on Ice. That was like Josh Fadem and those guys. And there was a scene over there. There were these scenes that I didn't really know. I was like, where? And as you started to connect with, also garage comedy was one too. So there's some disparate sort of alt comedy scenes in LA, which was what was so great about UCB when it opened, is it sort of brought everybody together and you kind of found your people.
It feels like that scene is a good segue into the person that we're going to talk about today, who is someone that's inspired you. I'll let you introduce her, please.
Oh yes, we were going to talk about Tig Notaro.
Oh, the
This is
coolest stand-up around,
truly the funniest and one of a kind, which I think is.
one of a kind. How did you discover her?
Actually, I had been doing so when I was at UCB, I was doing a lot of improv and sketch stuff, but I also started doing stand up along the way. And it was like straddling a lot. A couple of us. There was like Eliza Skinner was also kind of doing both. There were a few people who were kind of straddling both, and it was like kind of a lot to try to synthesize, but the first time I ever did stand up was like at UCB where they like drew a topic out of a hat and a name and you'd have to like go improvise it. It was
Whoa.
with Wyatt Cenac and Thomas.
Oh yeah, I remember Thomas.
Anyway, so at the time, like I was doing stand up but hadn't crossed paths with Tig, and a friend of mine, one of my dearest friends, was like, I was at the improv and I saw this person. And I don't really know how to explain it. Do you? And I was like, I just was my first knowledge was someone saying like, I can't really put into words like this experience I had watching this person. I was like, okay, cool. Keep an eye out.
Right, right. That's
And
a perfect way to describe the audience experience of seeing her for the first time.
for sure, for sure, because I would say that the thing with Tig and is that, and my husband has this too, where it's like, it's the way that the comedy affects you, like sort of permeates like a vibration, kind of gets in you like a bit of a drug.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you end up kind of high on it. Um, and I remember years later, just doing stand up, I was running a show at this theater downtown. It was like I'd say it was a venue called the One-Eyed Gypsy. It was a real interesting space, but we were doing a show down there and Tig was our headliner. And I don't know that we were getting huge crowds. It was a little bit sparse, but sure enough, it's just that shoop experience where all of the energy gets so sort of tubular in a way, and everyone's just like physically affected by this feeling of like this sort of hysteria of like it really gets in you. So afterwards, I remember saying to Tig, I was like, "Is it always like that? Like really, just like the wave is rolling and we are on it, you know?"
What did Tig say?
And I said, "Would it be fucked up if I said, yeah?"
Oh, that's awesome.
Like it is. That's like that's the ride. I was like, no, no, that makes sense. That it's
Oh,
never sort of it. In fact, I will say that I was watching this really cool project where they animated Tig's work. So it was like a special that was animated and the art was amazing. Like it was such a cool concept. But I will say that it was like it got in between, it got in the way for me because I'm like the funny thing is like
that's interesting. Yeah. That's true of so many comedians too. Like you really need to see their face and they're right. I wonder, yeah, if that would work on different people to animate them and take away the connection that you have to them telling their story. Interesting.
connection is so much a part of that particular performer's.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so visceral to watch her. Like you need to be looking at her. I wonder, yeah. Unless the animation is so realistic.
Yeah. But even then, it's like the pauses, even and the silence is so it's that again, it goes back to it being sort of this vibration that is so concentrated in a way where you're like, this is it, this is it. And I think that too is like one of the things that I find so watchable and inspiring about it is like I don't know, we've been some ways, if we go back to college for me, I've been like studying performance forever, and all of these different and like, studying in a way through live comedy, the relationship between audience and performer, right? Like that actual energy that is created and it is co-created for sure. And I think that's always been like the two most fascinating things about live comedy to me and particular performers is that like ability to sort of harness that vibration in a really acute way through like really, I would say like a truly someone experienced like a very concentrated form of themselves or bringing to us a very like the maximum self, if that makes sense.
Right. It
Like
does. That's sort of what you're doing on stage. You're focusing that so that people can laugh or cry or whatever you're doing.
mhm, mhm. And it's I think the more specific the person is, the more specific that ride or that conduit of like vibrational experience between the two is. It's just such a like concentrated form of it. There's yeah.
Well, she's like really harnessing the awkwardness in a way that's so hilarious, the deadpanness. Like
And
she's so awkward in a way that's so wonderful that it's like it's joyful.
yes, truly. The other piece of the joyfulness too is that I think just the undeniability of sort of self. It's like I really like people truly being who they are. I love to see that. I think like Kate Berlant's another version of that when Kate started doing, came to LA and see her out. It's like she didn't definitely wasn't like fitting into any traditional space and particularly like say at open mics or something where it's just like people who who are there and kind of claiming this real estate as if it's like there's a certain definition to it and they know what it, you know what I mean? Especially at that level, there's a lot of like wanting to have ownership of like what comedy is or whatever.
Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. Do you feel like there a lot of people are doing similar material or?
At that level, there's a lot of people mimicking other voices,
Okay, okay. Yeah.
practicing what they've seen and sort of using that as a stepping stone to hopefully eventually find their own voice. But I always thought that that was a weird way to do it. And it always bothered me when I could see it.
Mhm.
Because the people that I liked the most were such, again, like truly exposed versions of themselves that were never have, I think, could never have started off on a facsimile of something else. I just don't think that that's how those particular voices got there. Now, I bet that there are people who are very successful who started um, kind of with that blueprint of like performing someone else's style and then found their own voice. And that's one way to do it. And I think that's fair. I just, in some ways, I'm like, I'm such a weirdo that I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it that way. And it just maybe takes longer.
But that's that seems like what rises to the top, right? Is the authenticity, the voice that no one else can do it because it's yours.
And also the not asking for permission, you know, even in like environments where you're supposed to fit, I guess, or like your goal is to fit in order to be picked and to, you know, be considered it, whatever it is, to walk into spaces like that or to like exist in spaces like that where you're like, well, being it as it's perceived to be is not the way for me. So I'm gonna just not ask and not be I'm not gonna ask permission, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna keep doing this thing.
Yeah, it feels like Tig's not asking permission for nothing. I had the pleasure of brushing up on some of my favorite bits of hers, and I'm not going to retell any of them, but I wanted to bring them up to just have us get excited about them, I guess. But the Taylor Dane bit maybe is her most famous. And I was watching This American Life where they had her come and do the Taylor Dane bit. Have you seen this clip? So she tells her Taylor Dane bit, which is the short version is that she runs into Taylor Dane a couple times in her life and is a big Taylor Dane fan. And every time she runs into Taylor Dane, she says, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. I love your voice. I have to tell you, I love your voice." And each time Taylor Dane gives her like a different reaction. And one time she's like, "I don't do that anymore." And one time she's like, "My speaking voice." And another time she just says, "Thank you." And so Tig keeps running into Taylor Dane. So she tells this whole story at This American Life in a much more hilarious way than I just did. And then Taylor Dane comes out and sings to her.
My God.
Full surprise to Tig. Tig's like really looks very shocked, trying to take it in. Taylor Dane like comes over, is like singing to her, trying to put her arm around her. Tig's like having none of it at first. By the end, she's participating, dancing. It was adorable. Very satisfying. It's on Taylor Dane's YouTube channel.
Okay,
Like Taylor Dane's like, I love this fucking thing.
and I feel like Tig is the type of person or performer where like that has to have happened so much in her career where it's just like the craziest people must be fans. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I really think that there's like probably more of that. I mean, I just can't even imagine the strange environments and rooms that
Right. What crazy celebrity. Yeah, it's like, oh, hey, did you know Tig is a nickname given to her by her brother when she was very little? And her birth name is Matilda. Thanks, Wikipedia.
thank you, Wikipedia. That's very cool. Tig being a way to pronounce Matilda, I'm assuming.
Maybe as a little toddler would be like Matig the, I don't want to get in the head of her brother.
Think about because it's funny that you brought up the Taylor Dane bit because I remember seeing it a lot and I remember like crying, laughing, but I couldn't have. It's like about Tig telling it, so I couldn't have told you what the contents of. It's really
It's so funny. I couldn't remember the contents either until I watched it, and you're like, oh, I remember seeing this, but yeah, I hadn't seen the version where Taylor Dane comes out and performs. That was really satisfying.
okay.
Great end to the bit.
I remember the Bee on the 405.
Ooh, I don't know the B on the 405.
It's just so simple. It's just like kind of being neck and neck in traffic with a bee. Like that's how what really unpacked about like the saga of just like trying to get up the 405 in LA traffic and just having this tit for tat with a bee that you're passing and is catching it.
Wonderful. So small, so good. What about when she's like pushing a stool?
Oh my God.
Do you know that one?
Well, I feel like there might have been that. I feel like okay, so the last special that was, I think, Amazon, I feel like that it came back during that one or some version of it. Yes. Oh,
Um,
I've seen it. Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
she just, you push something and it squeaks on the floor and she pushes it and it's funny. And then she keeps pushing it and it's maybe not funny. And she pushes it some more. It's funny again. And
Yeah.
it's just great how she can continue a stool noise for 3, 4, 5 minutes.
I almost feel like I think what I'm remembering is on the last special, I feel like the piano bit is a version of that because it's like the finale is grand, bring out this grand piano. I like to play piano. Can I play piano? No. It's just sitting down, very grandiose approach to the piano and playing it so badly for so long.
Oh, that's great.
It's truly amazing. Again, like it's like a vibration you just is that you're on. I feel like you're on, whether it's I perhaps can compare it to a drug because you're just like you're high on the vibe, man. I
Yeah, she can get you high on that comedy vibe for sure. Did you watch One Mississippi?
did. I loved One Mississippi.
Really
Uh
good show. That was Tig's show, I think was on Amazon.
yes, it was really
Great
like
shows based on her life.
which I feel like I'm kind of curious. And you know how shows come back now and they're kind of in the zeitgeist. And I'm curious how, like, the average, because I think part of the appeal of that was being a Tig fan. And you're like, oh, I want to see where it all came. It's kind of like Maria, seeing like Maria Bamford watching
Hmm.
sort of reenactments or hearing things about the environment in which she was formed is very fascinating when you're like, how do you see
Yeah.
that?
It's interesting to be able to reflect on yourself and your life like that too.
Right. In the moment. Because I feel like that was sort of early in terms of the genre of comedians of that era. And I think we've since had, I think Rami's a great example. There's so many examples of it being successful, but it was one of those earlier versions of being like, I'm gonna step into sort of the realness here. And like
Hmm.
feel like I went back to school for directing and I've been directing a lot and it's all my focus is comedy, but always sort of with intense dramatic stakes. So it's not dramedy, but the tension of good drama with laughs. And that means that I've just never been a huge fan of like high key comedy, meaning.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tig's had some serious stuff happen in her life that she's heroically incorporated into her comedy. I was rereading about when she was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, and she did a set at Largo like the next day or the same day. And she just immediately started talking about it and was like, I was diagnosed, and it became this really moving performance. And Louis C.K., who thankfully did one good thing, said we should release this. This might help people. And so they released it on his website, and it like was downloaded a bajillion times.
It's huge.
Um, and then after she had a double mastectomy, she was performing at the New York Comedy Festival and did part of her set without her top on to just like show people her scars and as part of her show. And it was another really inspiring, incredible moment. Like, what a ballsy, cool fucking
Out to the maximum.
rock star.
Yes. Fully one's self in every moment. That's like, it's incredible. And that flashes me back to one of the earlier jokes, the little titties.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. She has a great response to people misgendering her, which I always forget because I'm often misgendered because I have short hair, I guess. Also, I look boyish, whatever. But people often be like, "Can I help you, sir?" And she says that you should just say, "Sure, ma'am," or, just misgender them right back. And I always forget, and I always am like, it's ma'am, and then I have this awkward interaction. But like, I always got to remember, just like real friendly, because they're politely misgendering me. So I'm just gonna hit you right back.
That makes me think there was a great, so when she was doing that podcast with Cheryl Hines, which I just kind of stumbled on, it was like they were watching old documentaries, or no, they were just watching documentaries and just talking about it. And I fell into it and I was like, oh my God, like, just like had a couple weeks where I was like high on the laughs, it was
Yeah.
just, it was a very low key podcast, but I remember Tig saying, that when the pronoun stuff was coming up in the newer generation, she was like, I'm not sure what to do here, or like, do I need to be an icon? Do I have to take this on in some way? And she called a good friend who's like classic 90s lesbian like herself. And she said her friend said, oh, honey, that's not for us. Again, like, I don't know, there's even bravery in being like, I don't have to be I'm not your
Yeah.
date. So like,
Yeah, let the next generation take this one. That just made me think of another small project that she did, which I'm forgetting the name of, but it was like Tig doesn't know celebrities,
yes.
and she interviews celebrities come on and she doesn't know who they are. It's like a talk show. And it would be like James Vanderbeek or something. And she'll be like, hi, are you an actor? Are you on television? And she tries to guess who it is by the end.
Behind a curtain. They don't need to be behind a curtain because she doesn't know
No,
who.
they're literally sitting next to her in her face. Yeah, it's like Melissa Joan Hart was on an episode, Vanderbeek. There's a bunch of them.
But recently, blah blah blah, Jason Statham. They're like, she was like, who's the Jason Statham? And they're like, is an action? Oh yeah, I forgot you don't know somebody's an action guy. And then she's like, is it a character? I mean, it's an amazing because that goes to show operating on a frequency that is really just for her own. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
we're not all on and owning it, and not being. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
really bad at. I'm pretty neurodivergent. I'm pretty bad at like you know, memorizing names or names in general. And I sometimes feel like I'm in the wrong business for that.
Right. Sometimes you feel like you have to know everybody in every movie and
And schmooze and be sort of sociopathic in your ability to be like, hello, Lauren,
right, right, right.
P and
Right. I remember you from this project and yeah.
but yeah, so I love the rock starness of just being like,
Yeah. Who's Jason Statham
who's Jason Statham? And this is
and James Vanderbeek?
this is a show where I don't know your face. I don't know you to your face.
Yeah. And I love her new podcast, Keeping It Handsome with
Yes.
Fortune and May. So pleasurable. I could listen to those three chat all day.
Again, rare birds, you know,
Yep. Three of them
truly do their own vibrations and then making it work and somehow braiding the vibrations so,
braiding the vibrations,
so beautifully.
the frequencies nodding together into a cornucopia hilarity.
Comedy braids.
I would say everyone should check out Tig's specials on all the streaming services. I think she's got them on a couple of them. Check out One Mississippi on Amazon. Check out Handsome Podcast. What you got anything people should check out there, Emily?
Myself, I'm a regular character on a podcast called Valley Heat, which yeah, I'm at Emily Maya Mills wherever you want to find me. Follow me on Instagram. Here's a little thing because it's the latest thing I was working on. It was like sort of fell into we made a one of those Doritos Crash the Super Bowl commercials.
Oh yeah?
I want everyone who worked on it worked on back end points, so we really want to win. It's not out yet, but if you follow me, you will see when we inevitably get to final rounds and start getting asking for
Hell
fan
yeah, that's awesome.
out because I think it would be so cool if like if that structure ended up working, it would be so awesome.
That would be awesome. Good for you. Tell your friends about the podcast. She's Funny Podcast. And thanks everybody for listening. Talk to you later. Bye.